welcome to this very special edition of Arirang News Center, coming to you live from Davos. I'm Moon Gan-young. Now, starting yesterday, we've been coming to you live from Davos. It's 2 p.m. here in the Swiss Alps town, and this is where the World Economic Forum is taking place. It's day 2 of the 4-day World Economic Forum, and unlike yesterday, as you can see, I don't have my coat on. It's a lot warmer with sunny conditions, and even though there's snow right behind me, as you can see, it's a beautiful town. It's quite sunny as well, a beautiful time for maybe to go skiing and snowboarding. But right now here at the venue, global leaders are discussing Europe. Europe is at the top of their agenda this afternoon, whereas early this morning, Chinese economy also took center stage. Well, before we delve into any further stories about Davos, let's first check into our Seoul studio with our Daniel Che for a check of the day's top headlines. Daniel.
Gan-young, good to hear that Mother Nature is cooperative and letting you guys keep warm for a new day in Davos. Over here in Korea, let's start with the National Assembly and everything that went on with lawmakers here in South Korea. The country's two main rival parties appear no closer to a compromise on a number of long-stalled bills. So, with a few days before the deadline arriving, the ruling party has made its move. Ji Myung-gil fills us in on the details.
The ruling Saenuri Party is urging Assembly Speaker Chung Lee-hwa to bypass the opposition and use his authority to bring a list of long-pending labor and economy bills up for a vote without bipartisan consent.
I would sincerely ask the Assembly Speaker to use his authority to set up the parliamentary schedule, including a date for the next plenary session. We were unable to fix a new schedule due to the opposition's uncooperative manner.
The floor leader stressed that under Article 76 of the National Assembly law, lawmakers have a duty to end legislative paralysis, and said this is the last chance to bring the bills to the floor before a parliamentary election in April. The speaker refused, saying there were no legal grounds for him to do so. The main opposition Minju Party accused the ruling party of trying to railroad the bills, including one on redrawing the nation's electoral map.
The ruling party says it's important to pass the redistricting bill quickly, as the general election is nearing. But they also say they can't pass the bill without tying it to 5 pending labor reform bills. They've taken the redistricting bill hostage.
Despite a series of talks stretching over the past year, the rival parties have failed to reach agreement on a new electoral map due to differences over the number of proportional representatives. The old electoral map expired on December 31st, following a constitutional court ruling that said a new one was called for due to population changes. Now, with the election in April and the end of the current parliamentary term in May fast approaching, there is growing concern that lawmakers will have difficulty getting the job done, as many will soon be focused on their re-election campaigns. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
And at an integrated defense meeting, President Park Geun-hye called for coordinated efforts among the country's security forces against all possible forms of attack from cyberspace to biological weapons, in recognition of the gravity of the national security situation, mainly from the threat of North Korea. Our Song Ji-sun gives us the full story.
President Park Geun-hye said North Korea's latest nuclear test has once again threatened peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and in the region. Speaking at the Central Integrated Defense meeting, which is chaired for the 3rd year, the president called for full defense readiness and improvements in the country's national security structure.
정부는 북한이 마땅한 대가를 치르도록 UN 차원의 대북 제재를 비롯해서 가능한 모든 실효적 수단을 추진해 나갈 것입니다. 이런 상황에서 더욱 염려가 되는 것은 북한의 대남 도발과 군사적 위협이 갈수록 교묘해지고 있어서 한반도의 안보 불확실성도 더욱 증대될 위험이 크다는 것입니다.
She ordered stronger countermeasures against biological, cyber, and terror attacks from any entity or country, including North Korea, as such attacks have the potential to incite chaos with just one hit. The meeting held Thursday was attended by members of the president's cabinet and over 230 officials from Korea's spy agency, the military, the prosecutor's office, the police, and local governments. President Park asked the country's national security forces to bolster their efforts toward coordination and cooperation. She also repeated her call to lawmakers to pass a pending counterterrorism bill, urging them to do more to guarantee the safety of the people. 송지선, Arirang News.
Unfazed by mounting challenges like driving oil prices and China's slowing growth, Finance Minister Yu Il-ho announced a number of priorities he has elected etched in stone rather for the rest of the year. Hwang Jie shares that very short list with us.
New Finance Chief Yu Il-ho has made clear that he will put job creation above everything else he has on his to-do list this year. During his first meeting with economy-related ministers on Thursday, Yu stressed the importance of completing structural reforms in order to attain this goal and vowed to pour efforts into the swift passage of a set of pending economy bills at the National Assembly this month. He also said the government will find fresh growth engines and breathe new life into the economy by balancing exports and domestic demand, some key issues reported during a policy briefing earlier this month.
By carrying out key policies that were announced in the briefing, we will focus on realizing tangible growth for the public.
In February, Korea will announce a set of measures to boost investment in new markets like biohealth and the sports industry. The government will also lay out plans to further promote promising consumer goods such as agricultural and beauty products in March as part of its effort to maximize the benefits of Korea's free trade deal with China. Although the finance minister did express concerns over the country's sluggish exports, coming mainly on the back of the slowing Chinese economy, he emphasized that Korea can find a way out by penetrating the construction market in Iran, where international sanctions have recently been lifted. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Well, I'll be right here waiting to provide more updates from outside of Davos in a while. For now, we switch over to Davos and Kanya will take over. I understand we have some interesting meetings with some of the superstars from Korea there, who doesn't happen to be a K-pop idol.
You're right. I wouldn't say K-pop idols, but yes, superstars. A lot of them, including Hubo the robot. But before that, the theme this year at the World Economic Forum is Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And as the name gives off, it involves 3D printing, robotics, artificial intelligence, as well as other technology-related items and products and innovations. Well, according to Kim Min-ji, a survey out says that more the developed an economy is, the more benefit you'll get from these industrial development. And our Kim Min-ji found out where Korea stands there.
The theme at this year's World Economic Forum is Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's where cutting-edge technologies are becoming embedded in our daily lives, making everything faster and more convenient. But is the world ready to adapt? According to Swiss bank UBS, advanced countries are. Switzerland topped the list, followed by Singapore, the Netherlands, Finland, and the United States. Korea ranked 25th among 139 countries. The ability to adapt to the Fourth Industrial Revolution was measured in 5 categories: labor market flexibility, educational system, infrastructure, technological ability, and legal protection. Korea's former finance chief, Choi Kyung-hwan, who is representing Seoul and Davos as a special presidential envoy, says Korea's creative economy drive is in line with the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The creative economy drive is aimed at merging different sectors and turning creative ideas into new business opportunities to create new jobs and industries. Speaking at a press conference, Choi said Korea needs to pursue new industry policies.
Having the right infrastructure is important. In order for our creative economy drive to work, we have to strip back regulations. As it stands, it's difficult to be innovative. Therefore, we have to cut back on red tape. Secondly, Korea needs to have an ecosystem which can tend to such developments.
Korea's former finance chief also emphasized the need for a flexible labor market and a workforce that can keep up with the rapid pace of technological developments and industry trends. Che was a panelist at a session held on Wednesday under the name Regions in Transformation East Asia. He noted that emerging economies need to strengthen their safety nets amid increasing global uncertainties to prevent a repeat of the Asian financial crisis of 1997 and 98. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News, Davos.
Well, the World Economic Forum right here, there are roughly 2,500 global leaders from all walks of life, political leaders, business leaders, social, cultural leaders, as well as 1,000 media representatives. Now, 1,000 of them, and so they're journalists, they're business leaders, they're cultural leaders, and there is one robot. And that robot is from Korea. Kais Hubo, who won the latest DARPA series, is here at World Economic Forum, as robotics is one of the key themes of this year's World Economic Forum. Our Kwon So-ah met with Hubo, and she brings us this report.
Korea's presence at the World Economic Forum is being boosted by none other than a robot. The special guest was invited to Davos this year and has become the talk of the town, even getting a name check from the forum's founder himself, Klaus Schwab.
2,400 people who are here, plus Robot Hubo.
With the fourth industrial revolution all about speedy and intelligent technologies, expectations are higher than ever for what the second wave of robotics might entail.
It may be still far from looking like a human, but when it comes to completing complex tasks, this humanoid robot may become your superhero in emergency situations in the future.
I'm very proud that Kais Hubo is being exhibited here. World-class companies, business leaders, and important government figures have all shown great interest. I'm proud as Hubo shows the world how good Korea's technology is.
Hubo, developed at KAIST, or the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, was the winner of last year's DARPA Robotics Challenge, a competition to find robots that can assist humans in responding to natural and man-made disasters. The robot's creator, Professor Oh Jun-ho, stresses that Hubo is still in its experimental stages.
Ultimate goal would be that the Hubo robot could solve all the existing problems in disaster scene, but it might be quite impossible in near future. So at this moment, I would like to make it possible to be used for other applications, other research groups, to be used for research purposes at this moment.
Kwon So-ah, Arirang News, Davos.
Well, one of the hottest topics being discussed right here in Davos at the World Economic Forum, other than Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is the theme this year, is, of course, China's slowing economic growth, refugees, as well as Europe and Britain, especially Britain's Brexit as well as Grexit. Right now, actually, UK Prime Minister David Cameron is in talks with the rest of the leaders, and they are discussing Europe and the Europe's crisis, as well as Britain's possibility of Britain exiting the Eurozone. And a lot of the leaders I'm hearing right now is that they disagree with Britain on exiting the Euro and exiting out of the European Union, in fact. Now, as for China, of course, China's economy is in fact not as bad as some might expect. Rubini, who is also a very pessimist, who anticipated the 2008 financial crisis, he even said that this is something that China is just going through. It's a transitional phase, and that we should just wait out for China to do a soft landing, and that this slowing economic growth or slowdown will not go too far in terms of China. Another very important figure who addressed the World Economic Forum is Joe Biden, U.S. Vice President. He started off his day yesterday with having talks with cancer. So he met with some cancer researchers and medical doctors. And I spoke to one of them who was in that behind a closed-door meeting and session, and he said that Joe Biden was very compassionate and passionate towards working towards cancer patients and really eradicating cancer in the world. Also, Joe Biden also gave an address, a special talk with Klaus Schwab earlier this morning, and he said that he really emphasized education and educating the poor and literacy as being the key to wealth, key to economic prosperity for everyone in the world. So those are some of the talks that are ongoing right here at the World Economic Forum. Today, Europe is in the hot seat, and we will be seeing more press releases coming out of those meetings and results coming from the European leaders. Right, and that is from Davos. Right, and we're going to go back to our Seoul studio, and we're going to head it back to Daniel for the rest of the day's stories. Daniel.
Well, Kanyang, this time we're not going to sidestep too far from some of the topics we touched on outside of Davos. Today, we're going to start with China again. This is China's central bank, which has been infusing a large chunk of cash into its financial system to help support the economy from spurring capital exodus and ahead of the Lunar New Year's holiday, the biggest holiday for the Chinese people. The announcement by the People's Bank of China Thursday marks the third cash pumping this week. For details, let's turn to our Shin Se-min.
The People's Bank of China continued to ease liquidity strains for its financial system, injecting a total of $114.4 billion of cash, all announced on Thursday. China's central bank said it would pump in 400 billion yuan, or $60 billion, using reverse repurchase agreements, the most in 3 years. And this will be followed by another injection of 352 billion yuan, or $53 billion, via the midterm lending facility. The world's second-largest economy is aiming to counter the rising threat of capital outflow, which is expected to coincide with the Chinese Lunar New Year's holiday, a time when the demand for cash rises. During the whole holiday week starting February 8th, China's entire financial system will be shut down, with the demand for cash expected to rise by some $455 billion. It's the second kind of liquidity support made by China's central bank this week. Earlier on Tuesday, the People's Bank of China injected $91 billion into the banking system through short and mid-term loans to its lenders, a move considered a substitute for monetary easing. China has been trying to hold borrowing costs down to help prop up the economy without prompting a capital flight. According to Bloomberg, an estimated $843 billion of capital flew out of China in the 11 months through November of last year, pressing policymakers to inject funds into the financial system to prevent interest rates from rising. The liquidity support is considered a substitute for a reverse requirement ratio, as overdoing it could put too much downward pressure on short-term interest rates, eventually destroying efforts to stabilize capital flows. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Let's talk about defense now. A terminal high-altitude area defense system, that's been the term that's been coined in and has been tossed around for many occasions. There are some pros and cons and hotly debated topics related to it. But now we're hearing that a U.S. think tank that recommends the deployment of that system, THAAD system, to South Korea, something they feel is necessary to help Korea deal with the growing threat posed by North Korea. Still, Seoul and Washington insist no official talks have been held regarding the American anti-ballistic missile system. For more, we turn to our Connie Kim to fill us in.
Deploying the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System to the Korean Peninsula will protect South Korea from North Korea's growing missile threats. That's the assessment of the U.S.-based think tank, Center for Strategic and International Studies. The report comes a little over 2 weeks after North Korea tested its fourth nuclear bomb.
Purchasing more missiles and stockpiling them and more launchers so that they're available in the Pacific should they be needed.
The Washington-based center said it would take South Korea too long to develop its own missile defense system, so THAAD would be the better option. Seoul aims to develop its own indigenous anti-missile defense systems, the Korea Air Missile Defense System and Kill Chain, by the early 2020s. Once operational, they would be able to intercept low-altitude missiles. THAAD is capable of intercepting incoming missiles at high altitudes. However, the U.S. think tank's suggestion is unlikely to be realized anytime soon. South Korea insists no formal talks have taken place on THAAD. And the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State in Seoul this week for talks on North Korea had this to say.
We've made no decision on THAAD, and in any event, as we've been very clear about, we will only proceed with THAAD in full consultation with our Korean partners.
The system's potential deployment to the Korean peninsula is a sensitive issue in Northeast Asia. As Beijing is concerned, THAAD's powerful radar system could be used to monitor mainland China. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And of course, that system that evokes a lot of strong response from outside of Korea will continue to be a subject of debate. Moving on to some stock market action, Asian markets took another battering on Thursday following a heavy sell-off in U.S. and European markets overnight, sparked by sliding oil prices. Oh Soo-young gives us the numbers and more.
It was a rocky day for Asian stocks as early gains made in the morning were completely erased by a sudden sell-off before market closure. Korea's benchmark Kospi dropped 0.27%, failing to recover from Wednesday's losses. The Nikkei and Shanghai index also dropped, shedding 2.43% and 3.23% respectively. The volatile session across Asian markets comes after the overnight turmoil in U.S. and European markets, caused by another plunge in global oil prices, with the West Texas Intermediate dropping below $27 per barrel, a new 12-year low. And until the week's end, experts say that markets are likely to remain volatile, due to fragile investor sentiment towards slumping oil prices and slowing growth in China.
Since the beginning of this year, worries about China's protracted economic slowdown have pushed global oil prices down, and the IMF's dismal global growth forecast has further dampened investor sentiment. Negative factors continue adding fuel to the fire.
He said, however, that investor sentiment could soon be appeased by a reassuring signal from the US Federal Reserve, which holds its regular policy meeting next week. The Fed lifted its benchmark short-term interest rate by 0.25 percentage point in December for the first time in 7 years, setting off speculation about future rate hikes. The expert predicted US regulators would likely keep rates steady for now and time future rate hikes to global economic conditions. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The good earth gifts the people receives, that's been the way, but things should change from here on. Global warming will be a hot topic of debate in any meetings, including, of course, the WEF in Davos as well. 2015 fulfilled scientists' grim predictions that it will be the warmest year ever recorded. From the icy wastelands of Siberia to rainforests in South America, planet Earth experienced record to near record warmth. Our Lee Ji-won explains why we are feeling the heat.
2015 was the hottest year on record, according to the U.S.-based National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and NASA on Wednesday. In fact, it was the hottest year in 136 years since record-keeping began in 1880, and the fourth time the record has been broken in 11 years. The average surface temperature last year was 14.8 degrees Celsius, topping the record set the year before by about 0.15 degrees, and well surpassing the 20th century average by 0.9 degrees. The intense warmth has produced weather extremes worldwide, such as a heat wave that killed about 2,500 people in India last spring, and the severe drought conditions and unusually high temperatures around the world. Human emissions of greenhouse gases have also aggravated the situation.
This is due to the accumulation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which acts as an insulating blanket around the Earth and traps outgoing long-wave radiation. More carbon dioxide keeps the Earth even warmer.
One U.S. climate scientist told the New York Times that the odds of back-to-back records of 2014 and 2015 are remote and would only make sense if the planet were warming inexorably. With El Niño still going strong, there are concerns that new temperature records could be set this year. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Let's Let's now go to the Weather Center for some updates with our Lee Ji-hyun. Ji-hyun, of course, if we weren't in the warmth of these lightings in the studio and stepping outside, we would be dressed a lot warmer than we are right now. And people are, of course, looking more and more like puffy balls of clouds covered from head to toe to make sure they stay warm when they brave the cold to step outside these days.
Well, I was definitely one of them. And yes, it was another freezing day today with a daily low in Seoul below minus 10 degrees Celsius. But the sensor temperature was about below minus 15 degrees Celsius for the fourth consecutive day.
Well, some silver lining thanks to these sub-zero temperatures in Korea for those who are aspiring to be the next Queen Kim Yeona. The surface of the Hangang River froze completely today, I heard.
That's right, Daniel. Well, the background picture that you're about to see behind me was taken from the Hangang River today, looking all frozen and icy. Now, the Korea Meteorological Administration officially declared the river frozen today. The announcement comes 18 days later than last year and about 8 days later than the average, and that's all due to relatively mild winter that we had last month, December. But what a month! January kicked off under very cold conditions, and the frigid temperatures will continue to grip the country till early next week. And don't be surprised to see this number on Sunday. We're gonna see a low of minus 17 degrees Celsius here in Seoul. So, try to be indoors if you can. And but definitely the relief is on the way, but we'll have to wait about a week for a warming trend, and the high will finally go above the freezing point. And as for tomorrow, it's going to be a repeat of what we've had today. A daily low here in Seoul will kick off at minus 10 degrees Celsius. Even Daejeon will kick off at minus 9, minus 7 for Daegu, and Busan will see a low of minus 2, and 3 is the lowest temperature over in Jeju Island. But daily highs will be slightly higher than today, with a high of minus 2 degrees Celsius here in Seoul, 3 for Daegu, while Busan and Jeju will see a high of 6 and 5 tomorrow afternoon. Now, while most regions will have partly sunny skies just like today, the East Coast as well as Ulleungdo and Dokdo will see snow of up to 8 centimeters, and heavy snow advisories in place in those regions, so please be cautious of heavy snow during the day. Now that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world. Again. Now, as for the weather update in Davos, where the World Economic Forum is taking place, minus 2 degrees Celsius will be the top readings for Thursday, while a warming trend is expected for Friday with a low of minus 6 degrees Celsius and a high of minus 1. Now, this is Lee Ji-hyun with your weather updates.
Well, you're watching Arirang News Center coming to you live from Davos, the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. I'm Moon Gan-young. Now, this is day 2 of the World Economic Forum, and we've been here for a few days now, coming to you live from Davos. We have a team coverage here, as you know, myself and our Kwon So-ah and Kim Min-ji. And one of my reporters is here with me in the studio, our So-ah. Hello, So-ah.
Good afternoon, Kan-young.
So-ah, it's a beautiful day. I mean, we were expecting very cold temperatures. We were bundling up. We had so many layers of sweaters and coats and boots, but today's beautiful.
I know. I was actually really expecting a freezing experience here in Davos because it is my first time here in this Alps town, but I guess the frozen Han River in Seoul is a much colder experience right now, and really the weather is beautiful.
Right. You know, I wonder, I was wondering why it is that, this forum in particular has been ongoing for 40 some years, and this is a very small town of 11,000, but every year for 4 days, all the global leaders, business leaders, cultural, social leaders gather here for 4 days. And I was wondering why, but I think I do know why. Because one, it's too cold to get out. So you all have to, get together, get friendly, mingle. You have no other choice. Or the weather is beautiful like this and you can't get in a dispute in this weather.
Wow, that's a great
That's
point
my
there.
interpretation.
And I know, and it's actually also a great weather to move around the electric cars that move from the media village where I'm staying and to the Congress Center. And how about I talk about the highlights we had from yesterday, the first day in Davos. I was really surprised how much attention there was on Korea's robot Hubo that we earlier saw in the report, right? And apart from that, topics that were discussed were cutting-edge technology and health innovations, and also China's economy, as you mentioned before. And the IMF has cut its growth forecast to 3.4% on the back of that slow growth in China. Now, meanwhile, in the Vatican, Pope Francis gave a message to the leaders here at Davos, saying that they should not turn a deaf ear to the poor people. He actually said, quote, "Do not forget the poor." And what he means is he's a little concerned about the technology developing so fast, because he calls Hubo, not exactly Hubo, but robotics and those high-tech technologies, soulless machines. So that's another point we could think about.
Right. Another big debate that's been ongoing here in Davos has been that with this advancement in technology, in IT, in smart technology, the income gap between the haves and have-nots will only get broader and broader, and that's income inequality, and that's going to be a problem. And U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, of course, addressed that particular point earlier today, or last night, actually. And that factor, in fact, has been, continues to be addressed by the leaders as they discuss smart technology and IT. They are also taking that parity into account and really looking at ways to come up with measures to prevent that from happening. So let's hope that they do come to some kind of solid conclusion on that. So I know that you've been at the media village a lot. That's where all the reporters are.
Exactly. And as you just been talking about income, one of the conferences, press conferences that I attended yesterday has a lot to do with that too, because what I attended was titled "Educating the Masters of the Fourth Industrial Revolution," and it was about how the Fourth Industrial Revolution is affecting the world of jobs, education, and skills. So let's hear what the speakers had to say about that.
According to the International Labour Organization, roughly 2 in 5 young people around the world are either unemployed or are working but below the poverty line.
The near-term, urgent, burning fires in front of us take more of our attention. That's the sense that I get.
There is going to be a longer gap between when somebody loses their job and when somebody will regain their job than in previous kind of revolutions or evolutions. And that is going to put a tremendous amount of stress on individuals, on society, and on businesses.
Now, the speakers also said achieving gender parity is a must, and that's why it's essential education systems which encourage critical thinking, creativity, and entrepreneurship need to be designed. And with the Fourth Industrial Revolution, there are a lot of concerns on jobs being replaced by technology, so holding these kinds of discussions are as important as developing such technologies.
Right. So as I said, along with advancement in technology, a lot of emphasis has been put on retraining and educating for specific needs and really moving away from general education into specific areas, right?
Exactly. And also later in the day, there is going to be a session on education. It would be on how to have access to education for the refugees, the millions of refugees these days. And that's going to be a speaker there will be Gordon Brown, UN Special Envoy for Global Education.
Right. Gordon Brown, of course, has been one of the front leaders of promoting education for the poor, and of course, accompanied by President Park Geun-hye recently last year on educating girls in poor areas, in educating them and funding and promoting them. So we'll have to look forward to that. Now, so what's expected today?
Right. Apart from that, we're expecting a key session by UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and World Bank Group's President Jim Yong Kim. And that's going to be on climate and development, which is also a very critical issue these days. And also, we're going to have a KAIST Ideas Lab session. KAIST, of course, being the creator of Hubo the robot, the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. And that's going to be on biotechnology solutions for the aging populations. And I also want to mention that we're going to have outside of the venue, of course, we're going to have the Korea night, which we're going to have a lot of expectations on, which is also going to be attended by the Special Envoy Choi Kyung-hwan, of course. So we're looking forward to that event, and we're going to have a coverage on that tomorrow, of course.
Right. So Cultural Night of Korea Night, it's been really one of the most popular nights here in Davos, and hopefully this year as well we'll have a lot of fun and people will learn a lot about Korea and different aspects. Oh yes, excellent food. All right, so thank you so much, and you will stay with me here in Davos throughout this coverage and next. But for you, well, this is it for us, from us, live from Davos. But stay tuned to Arirang because we have bits and pieces of sessions, 200 plus sessions that are ongoing here in Davos. So stay tuned to that. But I'll come back tomorrow, this time from live from Davos with Daniel Che in Seoul. Bye-bye.